Was her husband?
That was her son.
Oh, her son. Oh, okay.
Her husband, I'm pretty sure, was buried back near Pittsburgh, wherever it was, somewhere close to Pittsburgh.
Damn bugs are horrible.
I'm sure her father-in-law had much to say about that.
Yeah.
This is the grave of Salome Meyers, school teacher and resident of Gettysburg, who said that the sight of blood always sickened her, and then shortly afterwards said, I was destined to become used to it. She was asked during the first day of battle, the priest at the St. Cecilia's Catholic Church knocked on her door, I believe that was the church, and asked if she could come help with the wounded. She came into the first man that she saw and asked if she could do anything to help him, and he said, no, I'm dying. And she went back out and sat on the sidewalk and wept. And the clergyman came out and begged her to come back in and help, saying they were desperate for help, and she buttoned up for battle and did so. The man she saw was last name Stewart, and she took a liking to helping him out, even though his wounds were probably mortal. And actually, she ended up taking him home to care for him at her house, and wrote his family and said that he was in serious condition, but we were keeping him as comfortable as possible. And he died, I believe, 3 or 4 days after. It was a few days after, in Salome and her father's house. The family came to visit Salome to thank her for their care and to retrieve the soldier's body. And her brother's name was Henry Stewart, and him and Salome fell in love. Henry had injured himself accidentally while in the war. He actually had an accident with an axe and cut off part of his foot, which never healed properly. But him and Salome were married, and within roughly a year, they had moved to somewhere fairly close to Pittsburgh, so a pretty good distance from here. And Henry died from his wound less than a year after they were married, and Salome was pregnant. Her father-in-law wanted the boy, if it was a boy, to go a certain path in life, which Salome did not agree with, and she was basically disinherited or shunned by the family. And she came back and bore Henry. As you can see, his tombstone sits to the right of hers. On October 27, 1868, they moved back to Gettysburg. She would teach in the black school, anything she could do to make ends meet, but she made sure that her son was taken care of no matter what. And she would live to a rather ripe old age, considered all she had been through, and has left us behind some very good information on the battle. Henry would become a doctor here at Gettysburg and would serve faithfully. He would keep his mother's memories alive by keeping track of her work. There's some interesting books out on that subject that anyone interested ought to read. They're fascinating, the history. Salome was very involved in veterans matters after the war. She taught for many years after, and her tombstone, I cannot hardly read it, but it basically leaves on the epitaph that she was basically, her number one claim to fame, according to her, was that she was a mother. So she dedicated her life to raising her son, despite losing the love of her life after marrying him and only having him for a year.